Yeah, man. It's the one and only DJ Chase. I'm back. The pregame party Miss podcast with the all new episode. Once again, DJ Chase Radio, man. I've been working overload this week, man. But you know this, man. This episode is brought to you by College Radio Directory. Use the promo code DJ Chase and Groove, are the hottest platform to get in touch with labels, playlist curators, real people like myself to review your music. Good feedback, not bots. But enough of all that. All right, today we got a legend in the building, Mr. 88 Fingers himself, the only piano player there is, the only one that exists. You know this man.
Oh
My guy,
wow.
for sure. My guy, Mr. Richard 88 Fingers Turner Jr. How you
Uh,
doing, sir?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself, Mr. D?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. I'm actually coming out your way on Friday, so I'll be in LA on Friday, so I'm
What
coming out there.
time?
We'll talk off air. I'll tell you.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll be out
I
there. So
forgot. You can't be telling everything on this.
I like to stay low key, but I'll be out
Got
there.
you. Got you.
Yeah, but for sure, Mr. Richard Turner is a legendary piano player. Work with, the likes of Teena Marie. You know what I'm saying? Capitol Records, things like that. Phil Jackson Jr. The great. So, today I want to tell his story, and I want you guys and my audience to understand his story and his background. And once again, my show is dedicated to music education. So you're gonna get a lot of gems on this episode. You're gonna get a lot of, talking points and good advice to pursue your career in music. So, with that being said, Mr. Turner, I want to explore your background a little bit, and we're
All
going to
right.
transition and see, how you got to where you at today. So,
All
you're from
right.
California, correct?
Correct. Born and raised.
Yes,
Los Angeles.
sir. Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yes, sir. What part of Los Angeles? Because I know it's different.
Right in the hood.
All right. There
Right in
you
the
go.
center.
LA, and I would say, what era would you consider the '60s, '70s, or what would you consider?
Say that
Would be your,
again.
what would be your era? The '60s, '70s, or
60.
'80s? '60s. Got
Yes.
you. And how was it the '60s? With all that rich culture, the South, the California roots of the South, and things like that. How did that influence you growing up?
Well, I mean, that's when a lot of our folks migrated, so
Mm,
they were really developing. I think right then they was really developing the culture there in the city because they were now being starting to buy homes on the west side,
mm,
and so it was a good growth part, and the start of
mm.
the next culture.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as LA, like I said, you got the Watts riots. You guys are known for the LA riots in '92. How was that rebellion of California? How did that affect you, and like, how did that inspire you musically?
Uh, well, the riots didn't affect me as much because I think I was kept from it.
Mm,
Uh, uh, but I would say musically, it that's a really good question. I have never been asked that before.
I do a little something.
I never even thought about it.
Yeah.
But musically, I would say it just helped me to be more aware of
Mm,
some of my own environment and why some of the music from the
mm,
late 50s on into the 60s exist.
mm,
They were singing a lot about,
mm, mm.
the struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
Mm.
about the struggles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And in that environment, I know you said you were kind of shield from it. Were your parents involved in entertainment or in music, anything like that?
Yes, my dad was a musician. He
Hmm.
worked at Capitol Records, and
Nice.
then
Okay.
he's also a church musician. So he played at church, and
Hmm.
so I was in deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a singing group, my dad and my
Yeah.
mom's,
Yeah.
a gospel
Yeah.
singing group.
Got you. Got you. And at what point did you start playing the piano? Like, when did you say? Because you could have been anything. You could have been a basketball player, a doctor, a dentist. What made you want to pick up the piano?
Well, actually, I started on the organ.
Okay. Okay.
My dad was playing at church, and I'm
Mm.
at church all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I got on the organ and started playing organ, and was
Yeah.
playing with him.
Mm.
When I was really young.
Yeah.
Uh, the first time I played the organ, I couldn't even reach the pedals.
For sure, for sure. And being that your dad worked at Capitol, like, what were some of the artists that inspired you? Like, who you inspired
Oh
by?
my goodness. The one that inspired me the most was
Yeah.
Nat King Cole.
Yes, yes, the great.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
and Nally Cole.
Yeah,
Him, Nally Cole.
yeah.
Then, I used to go to all the shows. So Tavares,
Mm,
Peebo Bryson.
yeah.
That list goes on and on.
Yeah, yeah. Great, great, great. And then with that being said, as you become, you started coming into your own versus the church, you went to college for music as a producer myself and a younger producer and things like that. Do you feel like being taught music is a little bit off-putting versus learning it on your own, or you felt that being taught music benefited you?
I think they go hand in hand. I don't think
Mm,
you can do one without the other.
mm,
You know, uh, I think if you have the talent to do music, you do it, and then you go and develop it.
mm,
Uh, the education part for me is
mm,
more the knowledge and uh, helping you to develop
mm,
an understanding, so therefore you can translate how you view music
mm,
to the world,
mm.
and they can
Gotcha.
understand it.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. And now, once again, you more or less, I would say you chose to. Did you like want to be more in the spotlight, or did you feel like, what, I'm gonna do both? I want to be in the background, session work, things like that, or did you say, what, I wanted to be more on the forefront? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, like a Nat King Cole or Ray Charles or somebody like that.
No, I was okay with being,
Mm,
a supporting cast,
yeah.
more supporting cast. I
Mm,
enjoy playing for people and,
mm,
supporting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say.
Got you. And what's the reason why? I'm quite curious to know why. What made you come? Because like I said, I mean you've been in this business a lot longer than me. So you see everybody that craves for the fame. What made you want to stay in the background?
Maybe the shyness,
Mm.
a little of that. I would say
Okay.
what makes me want to stay in the background
Yeah.
is it seems like when you out front, you more alone and by yourself.
Mm.
Uh, in the
Mm.
background, you get to communicate more, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
It's
I
not as
agree.
much pressure.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same exact way. I can't stand, like, I DJ of course, but I'm like, I like being in the. I don't want to be Drake or Dr. Dre. I love Dr. Dre is my hero, but I don't want to. I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah,
If it happens, it happens. But I try my best to stay
right.
as background as I can. And how was it? Being like a live musician, like, because once again, people like us, we like being in the studio and writing music and things like that. How was it being on stage like James Ingram and Teena Marie and those real big sounds? Like, how was that experience performing with them?
It was being on stage was like like the it was fulfilling the
Yeah.
part that you can't get when you're in the studio.
Mm,
So it gave me the response I need in order to see, okay, if you do this, then this is the response of it.
mm,
So it was more of a conclusion of
mm,
being behind the scenes all the time.
mm. Gotcha, gotcha. So more of a, like, I guess, like a result of it, or I guess like an
Yes, the
afterthought of it.
result.
Okay,
Yes, that's a
perfect,
good way to put
perfect.
it.
And do you feel like, what, doing, I wouldn't call it secular music. Did you ever feel conflicted doing gospel and R&B music at the same time?
Never, because I don't know the difference.
There you go. I like that. That's
Good
that
here.
West Coast. That's
You
that
know,
West Coast all day.
listen,
Right, right, right.
when they used to say, uh, if I play at church, someone come up and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, boy, keep doing the work of the Lord." And I said, "Okay." And they don't know that I just played a secular thing, because and if they did question
Yeah.
it, because I understand the
Mm,
psyche. I
yeah.
would say, okay, I'm gonna hit this C. Now tell me if it's a gospel C, or if it's a spiritual C, or if it's a
Yeah.
R&B C. It
Yeah.
sounds like a C. So
Yeah.
sound is sound.
Yeah.
Now I understand the difference is in the motive in which with
Mm,
which you do it, and as well as the reason you do it.
mm,
So,
yeah.
but a C is a C. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have a style. It
Yeah.
has a sound.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. I hear that. And is the piano the only thing that you play, or you do play other instruments as well?
I learned to play multiple instruments.
Mm,
I Piano and organ is my main
mm,
instrument. Then I play bass guitar and
mm.
woodwinds. And I
Perfect,
just
perfect.
recently picked up the trumpet and the
Nice.
brass area because
Yeah.
I had to teach all that stuff, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure. And I do want to ask this. This is a really cool question for me because I'm curious. Do you find it like easier to free form like freestyle and jam session or writing music like on paper?
For me, it's writing music on paper.
Mm, mm,
Uh, because I can't remember
mm.
a lot of times,
Yeah,
especially when you're in the moment.
yeah.
So I rather write it down, and then if I can see it,
Mm.
then I can see the shape of it.
Wow. Okay.
I'm looking at the shape. It's like it becomes like a painting.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you went up. Oh, you went down. Oh, you stayed the same.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
either one or the other.
yeah,
Then you can see a pattern,
yeah.
you know.
So we're going to talk about some questions on music today, Mr. Turner.
I love it.
And I just want to tell you too. Actually, I would say my grandmother's maiden name. I'm a Turner as well too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Do my
Oh,
grandmother's. Yep.
okay, your grandmother's in what state?
Well, she's from Culpeper, so I'm trying to figure out if her father's Turner. I think my great grandmother would be Turner, if I'm not mistaken, because it's Cooper and Turner, so it's Cooper and Turner. So
Okay,
yeah, we'll
cool.
find out. We'll figure it out when I
All right,
come
we
out there.
might be related.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And with that being said, now we're gonna talk about this MIDI transition, right? And I do want to ask you this question. So
Wow.
in 2025, all the music is super distorted, and I'm only 37, and I don't like distorted music. So how do you feel like with the sound, or like they're tweaking the sound to make it distorted? But how do you feel MIDI versus classical analog piano?
I am not a fan of MIDI piano
Yeah.
because, as you know, the piano has 16 overtones.
Mm.
So when you hit one string,
Yeah.
that's 16 different sounds coming out of that one string.
Yeah.
You may cannot hear all of them. You can only hear the one that is tuned to.
Mm.
With MIDI, you got one sound. So
Yeah.
you're not getting the full range of
Yeah.
that one note.
Mm.
Or, and then when you have combination of notes, you're not getting the full range of the sound.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
only getting that imitation sound. For me, the best way I can explain it, it would be like uh, if I'm eating a hamburger
Yeah.
and it's real beef, no matter how flat it is, no matter how big it is,
Mm.
it's going to taste like beef. If I'm eating a
Yeah.
false hamburger,
Yeah.
you can make it as big as you want, make it as small as you want, but it's not beef.
Mm.
So it's going to satisfy me, but it's not going to fulfill me
Mm.
like the real beef would.
Okay. And with the real beef, with that being said, some USDA real sauce on this meat that we call music. As we call it music meat. With that being said, do you feel like the transition of hip hop, okay, and I'm saying that on a sample base, like sample base,
Okay.
loop base, things like that, right? Do you feel like is that's the reason why the music is not selling because that real meat is not there?
And you're talking about hip hop music?
All music.
Oh, all music?
All music, yeah.
I think that's why it's not viewed.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it's not selling.
Yeah. Well, you know
I,
why I said that? Because you know why I said that, Mr. Turner? I'm gonna explain why. And I kind of wanted
okay,
to
good.
phrase like that. Because a lot of times the artists blame it on streaming versus
Mm.
actual sound. So as somebody who's seen the transition, I've been doing DJing about 20 years, making beats a long time. I personally think it's the music, but do you feel like it's because of the music losing its feeling and the actual authenticity, or do you feel like it's the actual streaming services?
I feel it's a part both. And
Mm.
I think they go
Okay.
hand in hand. I
Okay.
would say they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like a shortcut version
Mm,
of of what people have spent their lifetime
mm,
thinking about creating and developing.
yeah.
And so it's like a microwave way of
Mm,
doing it.
yeah.
And as you know, if you don't know the right temperature
Mm,
when you put something in the microwave, it could either burn up, it can either be too rubbery,
yeah.
it can be too soft.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening. It's
Mm,
like,
yeah.
I don't think they figured out, okay, so if we're going to do it this way, how can we do it this way? And it does not change the quality or the
Mm,
texture.
mm,
Because if they ever come up with that, then that's a plus
mm,
for producers and music people
yeah.
because they're getting the same results, but they're
Yeah.
getting in a more contemporary form.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that being said as well too, and I want to ask you this another question about California. You guys are amazing. The sound is just overall, like I said, you guys play real instruments. New York, I'm a New Yorker. We sample bass, unfortunately. Mm. But what? How did California get that authentic sound, like that musicianship? How? What is it in the school? Is it the schools that's teaching that, or like how did all the Californian guys all musicians?
We did at I can't say at this moment, but
Mm.
we had music every day in the schools at one
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
You know. And so therefore a lot of the touring bands, a lot of the musicians that you see
Mm.
working now come out of those schools, because
Mm.
you had some of the best industry people here. You got Hollywood here, so you had
Mm.
some of the best industry people producing a lot of students
Mm.
because you had programs, you
Yeah.
had funding
Mm.
for these schools. You had, you know, we don't have like marching bands like the East Coast and the
Mm.
South,
Mm.
but we had a lot of bands and
Yeah.
a lot of festivities that
Mm.
require music. So
Mm.
music is constant,
Mm.
from the movie standpoint, from the film standpoint, from
Mm.
you just theater standpoint. So
Mm.
music is like constant here.
Mm. Mm. For sure, for sure. And thank you for that answer too. And as somebody who's seen a transition, like I said, your dad worked at Capitol Records. You're a great, one of the best musicians ever I've heard in my life. Um,
Wow. That's
I do. I've mixed. Trust me, I mix so much stuff, and like a lot of times it be off tune, and it's just like, all right, and I do it for the money. I ain't gonna turn down some money, but
right.
but I'm listening for musically, and I'm listening to the track forever, and I'm like, this is incredible. Like even just from the softness of the mixtures and just the textures of the mixes and things like that. You know, how do you feel like the transition of the music business has changed? And it's a two-part question. So, from like I said, you've seen it all over. You've seen it from the West Coast on down, so how do you feel like the music has changed? And do you feel like the musicianship coming back is a good thing?
I feel the music coming back is the best thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's like, if you think about it, almost every 40 years, the revolving door turns right back
Yeah.
because there's really not a lot you can do or say differently.
Mm,
Or if it is different, it's different from what? You always have to ask the question, what is it different from?
mm,
You have to find out who did that, and they may have done it on real instruments now. So if you're going to do the same thought
mm,
or the similar thought, and you're doing it on a different type of instrument or something that is not a real instrument, then you would want to study the
mm,
what that is.
mm,
So therefore you know how to alter it. It's like you can't break a rule if you don't know what the rule is,
mm,
because
mm.
you haven't studied what the rule is.
Yeah.
So as far as it changing, uh, like I said, I welcome the change. I just wish that it was a balance as far as
Mm,
knowing what it was.
Mm,
That was the big thing I always discussed with my father. He would say, "You can't do that." And I say, "Well, why you can't do that?"
mm,
And he would say, he said, "Because that's not music." And I said, "Well,
yeah,
so and so is doing it, and he's making a whole lot of money doing that." He said, "Yeah, but
yeah,
you need to learn it the right way." And I say, "Well, what's the right way?" So it used to go on and on.
yeah,
But I understood as I got older and later on, I understood what he meant, you
mm,
know. He
mm,
just didn't know how to tell me, okay, learn what was done.
mm,
So when you change it, you know you're changing it. And you
yeah,
changing it consciously, not by accident,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that's how I was too. Though my mentor, Mr. Dan Wood, he said the same thing, and I'm like, he's like, you're clipping, you're clipping, you're clipping. I'm like, it sounds good, and then now I'm old, I understand what he meant. But you 18, you like, listen, bro, like I'm on the. I was spoiled too because I had the O1V board, and I was just like, I
Oh,
was spoiled. They don't even make them no
I
more. The light pipe, yeah, they don't make them no more. So I was spoiled, and he was just yelling at me all the time. But he taught me so many things, so I always salute him for that. So, but I definitely understand that,
yeah. I
and
mean, on
yeah,
that note, I remember
yeah,
being in I'm not sure if I was at a studio
yeah.
and the producer walked in and he was hearing it and the engineer kept turning it down. And he said, "Hey man, why you keep turning that down?" He said,
Yeah,
"It's going into red."
yeah.
He looked at him, he said, "Do you hear red? Do you hear distortion? If you don't hear it, let it go up in the
That's
red."
how I was. I was bad. I was like that too. I was like that, but I've matured in my old age. So I've
Yeah,
matured. I'm matured now, so I don't clip no more. But I used to.
right.
I used to listen. The louder the better. And I want to, Mr. Turner, I do want to ask you this question, right? There's a lot of. I try my best. I'm trying to be a young executive and change the narrative. How do you feel about the the lack of black representation in the executive space in the music business?
Well, I think it has to do with as far as feeling about the lack of representation,
Mm,
it falls in line with the lack of education.
okay, respect.
Because you can't do something
Mm,
if you don't already know the system,
yeah.
unless you're going to create a different system or a new system.
Mm, mm,
So the lack of representation, some of it, and I would say most of it, has to do with because if you're going to join a system that already exists, you have to learn that system.
mm. I like that
And
answer.
if you're not going to join that system, you
Mm,
have to create a system
yeah.
that is compatible or either better,
Mm,
and they've already done the legwork. The legwork has already been done for it. So now
mm,
it's about, okay, and there's some people that are coming along
mm,
that are really trying to
mm,
change things so it can adapt to
mm.
different cultures. I would say that.
Got you. And like I said, being a jazz musician, and once again, a live show is after COVID, as you see, they used to knock the live show. Now everybody want to hit the road now, right?
Yeah.
They knocked the live show before. How do you feel about the like I said, the resurgence of the live show, and then the younger artists and the newer artists, jazz or otherwise, K-pop, hip hop, it doesn't matter what genre. How do you feel about them actually starting now to understand the performance aspect of music?
Oh, I love it because now they have even more to work with. They have more technology, they have more
Mm,
visual.
yeah.
So now visually, they can really create whatever they want to create
Mm,
with the visual aspect of it,
mm,
technology and visual.
yeah.
So live could be like because basically you're competing against television.
Mm,
Although people are doing more listening,
mm,
when you give them visual, because music is all on everything on television.
yeah.
You know, you look that's even in sports.
Mm.
All the commercials, all during the breaks of the
Everything got music in it. Yep. Everything
everything
got
got
music.
music.
Yeah,
If
everything.
you really pay attention to it,
Mm,
so now to create that live
mm,
and get the same results as
mm,
visual can really. I can see how visual is going to really help that.
mm. Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And one of my last questions I do want to ask you, Ms. Turner, as well too, is how do you feel about now? Once again, you come from a major label system. I have to ask. So how do you feel about the independent labels versus the major system? And from your professional opinion, do you feel like an artist should stay independent or go major?
Mm. That's a double sword question.
Yeah,
Let me see how I can answer that.
we got time.
Okay, let me think slowly.
Yeah,
I think if they have the tools and the machine to go independent, then that's wise. However, if they don't have that, I think the machine and the tool that has been created for them also, and if they have the kind of team that these companies had with artists, they had a developing team, they had a mentoring team, they had all kind of people that loved to be in the background, was just as talented, could have been that artist, but they chose to be like a teacher, like more in the background. I'm going to support you with your dream and with you being out front, So it's like sports to me. You know, can somebody play sports without an agent? They can, but not really.
yeah,
Because that's a different conversation,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Shooting the ball and having a conversation about funds, about how much it's going to cost you to shoot the ball is
yeah,
two different things. And then
yeah.
it's so many other departments that you have to deal with. So if an independent artist can can take care of all of that stuff,
Mm,
then I pat them on the back. But that's not normally the case. And then what happens is when you do that, you're creating you're not creating uh uh different opinions and a bigger team for what you're doing. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it becomes smaller thinking to me.
I like that answer. I've never even heard it mentioned like that, but I do think it's a small thing too. Like, some people see me I'm like, I'm not independent. Like, I'm not, I don't know why they think that, but I'm like, oh, listen, if somebody offer you a $250,000 a record, you better take that money. Don't be no
Right.
fool. You better
And
take
go
that
hire the
money.
people.
And go hire the people. You don't be no fool. Listen, if the major label or label tells you to come take that money, don't let nobody tell you that. Because
Yes,
trust me, a publisher check takes a gazillion years to come independently. So take that money up front.
correct.
And then, Mr. Turner, I do want to ask you. You got a couple singles I got in a rotation for the love of you. Been
Yeah.
so long. Like I said, did you write those records or did you produce? You did all the writing, everything on the records?
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
did all the writing on the records.
Right, nice, perfect. And then, like I said, the one that's on Spotify. And the reason phrasing like that is because I want to know: is there like a full album coming out soon?
Yes, I'm in the middle of
Yeah,
finishing up. I'm praying that I can be finished by the end of the summer.
there we go. Is there a title for it?
Uh, I haven't come up with one. I think I'm gonna put it out there to see what what
Yeah,
what the audience say the
yeah,
title should be. It was like
yeah,
virtuality or something like that. I forget what
yeah,
the word is, but
yeah,
it's some kind of off word. I haven't really
yeah.
put that to mind yet.
Awesome, awesome. And I know Friday, Mr. Turner has a show in Torrance, California. Hopefully, I could get in
Yes,
town in time and make it. So we're
yes.
gonna talk off it. So I try to make my way out there. I don't know how far it is, but I'm gonna find my way there somehow.
I look forward to it, man.
For sure, for sure. And what's the show about? Like, are you just performing, just hitting the piano?
Yeah, just piano, and I got my band with me,
Man, okay, perfect, perfect.
and basically the cast that played on the record.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And my very last question I ask, and once again, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. Once again, as I always ask, and like I said, you're a fan of the show. You know this inaugural question. Um, out of all the things you've seen and all the things that you've been through and all the knowledge that you have, what is one piece of advice that you would give any artist getting into the business right now? And you can listen. We got time. We got plenty of time.
Getting into the business, be committed. If you get in, be committed. Get all the way in, learn as much as you can, spend time, treat it, make it a lifetime. Don't make it a part-time type of thing, but a lifetime.
Yeah. There we have it. You know this, man. Once again, DJ Chase, the pregame party Miss podcast, right here on WDJC DJ Chase Radio. Mr. Turner, plug your social media, tell everywhere they can find you, the website, everything.
Okay, so they can find me on richardturnerjr.com. That's my website. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Instagram and TikTok.
Oh, you on
And
TikTok? Yeah, yeah. Let's get it.
yeah, I'm not a social media person, but I'm
there
getting I'm trying to get
we
there.
go. There we go. A little something.
It's just
Yeah.
like going from playing a real piano, real organ to
To
a
MIDI.
synthesizer. Yeah, to the MIDI. Yeah, it's the same concept there.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. You know this, man. Once again, I am DJ Chase, man. Like I said, I'm dropping jewels. I'll be in LA, so I'm taking a week off, going out there to do some work. You know what it is. DJ Chase got to work, hit the road. Been so long. Streaming right here on DJ Chase Radio. Download that DJ Chase Radio mobile app. Once again, it's the pregame party Miss podcast right here on DJ Chase Radio. Stream on SheRealRadio.com 24/7 Sundays, 2 p.m. on Sundays. DJChase.net. Get that merch. Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube DJ Chase TV. And I'm out. Yeah.